aspect of the preliminary examination, I think it can be divided into two major aspects: technique with respect to the study of the fixed sources, and technique with respect to actual solving the question paper. And answer writing for GS2, according to me, has been an important aspect because it is all about how you address the demand of that question at that particular time. With respect to the personality test, I think it is about how your opinions are developed and how well you can convince the esteemed panel members regarding what you believe in. Hello everyone, I am Mrunalee Joshi and I have secured rank 36 in the Civil Services Examination 2020. I think the UPSC journey for me has been a very enriching one. This has been my second attempt at the Civil Services Examination. In the first one, I couldn't crack the preliminary examination, and in the second attempt, I was able to secure this rank 36 in the examination. So today, I would like to briefly explain my prelims, mains and interview strategy for the Civil Services Examination. The preliminary examination is the first stage of the UPSC process. So with regards to the preliminary examination, I think one of the most basic things is fixed sources. So having fixed sources for the prelims is very much necessary, and for that I think we have a list which is readily available on various sources as well as on the internet and available to all the aspirants out there. However, it is how we make the best use of the available fixed sources and have good techniques for the preliminary examination, and I think that is what is the thing which matters in the examination. With respect to the technique aspect of the preliminary examination, I think it can be divided into two major aspects: technique with respect to the study of the fixed sources, and technique with respect to actual solving the question paper as well as various test series and also the actual paper on the day of the preliminary examination. So let me elaborate by beginning with the technique with respect to the sources we use to for the preliminary examination. I think with respect to the fixed sources, we need to personalize such kind of sources to suit our own necessities. For example, if we have M. Lakshmikant for polity as the basic source which can be used, we need to utilize it to the best of our extent by perhaps making some type of charts, some type of concise notes, micro notes, that which can be easily revised by us and that which we can use readily before the examination. So I think we need to develop that kind of comfort level when it comes to the sources which we use for the preliminary examination. So this is one of the techniques I wanted to say about the fixed sources that I mentioned. Second, with respect to the technique on the day of the actual examination, which we develop from the various test series that we solve before the actual examination. With respect to the technique that we develop on with respect to the test series, I think it is something which is continuously evolved over time, and this is what we need to develop by understanding our own strengths, our own weaknesses and the threats that we might face on the day of the actual examination. I call this entire thing as the feedback loop which we need to develop, especially for the prelims. For example, when we solve one test series, we need to analyze after that test series what perhaps I could have done better, not only in terms of the output, that is the marks that we get after solving that particular test series, but also with respect to the process of solving the entire test series, how we actually felt while doing that, what was our temperament, were we stressed out, and perhaps the attempt number which can be variable in that entire aspect. So this kind of feedback loop we need to incorporate so that after that output we come back to the some kind of learnings which are tangible, we write them down, and then we make sure that we don't repeat our mistakes we did in the previous test series, right? So I think such kind of strategy and technique needs to be developed over time, so that on that day of that preliminary examination, we do our best and we are dynamic in terms of addressing the demand of that entire preliminary examination on that day. So this is what I wanted to say about the preliminary examination. Let us now move on to the next part, that is the second stage of this examination, that is the mains. So I think for me personally, the mains examination has been a very enjoyable experience because I love writing. However, with respect to the GS papers, GS 1, 2, 3, I think each of this paper has a different approach which needs to be followed. And if I could begin by talking about the sources, like I had done with the preliminary examination. So with respect to the sources, I think each of the syllabus point needs to be correlated with a specific source, and we need to write down the kind of questions UPSC has been asking from that particular syllabus point. For example, in GS1, you have art, literature and other aspects, for example, architecture. So we need to write that syllabus point down and then actually check whether UPSC has been asking questions on that particular area. If it is so, then marking our own sources for that particular subtopic in the syllabus, and then perhaps making our own notes or using digital form of notes, any type of notes which we find comfortable, so that we get a clear idea of what we need to revise before the mains, right? So this is about the GS1 aspect, as I said. With respect to GS2, I think a similar strategy needs to be followed, that of correlating the syllabus points with the entire sources as well as past year questions. But along with that, GS2 I think is also, since there has been an increasing weightage given to polity, we need to also brush up on our basics from Lakshmikant and the standard books, as well as practice answer writing. And answer writing for GS2, according to me, has been an important aspect because it is all about how you address the demand of that question at that particular time. So GS2 is about demand and content which you develop over time, which happens with practice. With respect to GS3, I would like to say that there is a lot of dynamism associated with GS3. You have a lot of current affairs which need to be correlated, and hence there is a lot of confusion regarding whether there are fixed sources, especially with respect to economy, environment, science and tech part. With respect to the other aspects such as disaster management, internal security, we can reduce the syllabus and have some defined things. With respect to the other things, I think we can always refer to some good current affairs booklets for GS3 and make our own notes, as well as develop that kind of answer writing practice like we had done, like I had discussed for GS2 as an aspect, so that we can be spontaneous in answer writing in GS3 and address the demand of the question well. So this is about GS3 which I would like to talk about. Then we come to the fourth most important aspect of the entire papers that we have in the UPSC mains examination, and that is the ethics paper. So I think the ethics paper is a very important paper in the sense that we have to complete a lot of questions in less time. For me, it was a race against time which I had to do, because I had to write a lot of content as well as complete all the case studies and be able to answer the demand of the question. So with respect to ethics, I think we can divide the entire ethics paper into two major aspects. One is the theory part and the second is the case studies part. With respect to the theory part, I think it is best to have our own notes, which I again repeat need to be personalized to suit our own demands. So we can take the content available in the market with respect to the standard books as well. However, we need to add our own examples to that entire ethics papers. For example, there is a concept or there is a syllabus point which is called foundational values of civil services. So we need to have for each value that is mentioned in the UPSC syllabus our own notes, and examples which we can reproduce in the actual answer paper at that particular time. So this can be one of the approaches that we can have for the ethics paper with respect to the theory aspect. With respect to the second part of case studies, I think case studies is mainly about how you practice well and how you actually structure the case study to the best of your extent, especially in that paper on that particular day. For that, I think my strategy was having a rigorous practice of various structures which I did before the examination, so that I could actually spend less amount of time during that particular case study overthinking, and then move to the actual content suited to that particular case study which was asked in the UPSC mains examination. So I suggest that rigorous practice of structures of content is necessary for case studies which work for me. Yes, so this was about the ethics part. Now let us move on to the essay, which is an important aspect of the UPSC civil services examination. With respect to the essay, I think there needs to be some kind of background that we give to that essay paper, and that background develops when we have good reading skills, good writing skills, which I think reflect in that essay paper. If we have such kind of skills, we can use them directly in our essays, and I think our entire mode of expression changes when it comes to the essay writing. So for me, I think the essay was all about expressing myself. However, like I said, having a very good structure and practice of structures beforehand helps, especially with respect to philosophical essays, where there is a lot of subjectivity associated with that entire essay, and there can be a variation in that entire interpretation of how that essay looks to that particular examiner at that particular moment. So a good practice of structures, evaluating them by different examiners beforehand, and having good reading and writing practice, a good notebook in which you can have some ready quotes, some ready examples which you can use directly in that examination, on that examination day for philosophical aspects, can be one of the ways in which you can address the philosophical essay part of that essay paper. With respect to the other essays, I think if we have a good hold over our GS topics and a good practice of our structures, I am sure that we can work on the essays well. And I think practice, like I said, before the test, during the test series which we do, and assessing whether such kind of essays are really getting us good marks in the test series or not, can help with respect to GS essays. So this is with respect to the essay part of that entire paper. So this was my entire these were my thoughts with respect to the GS mains paper, right from GS 1, 2, 3 and ethics and essay part. And I think it is all about how you present yourself, how you structure, and how you address the content according to the demand of the question, and not only project what you know, but what the question demands. So I think the demand is the key word with respect to the entire GS papers, which I felt worked for me. Of course, everyone can have his or her strategy, but this is what I need to explain. Right. So now let us move on to the third stage of the interview, which is the interview part of this entire UPSC process. With respect to the interview, I think it is called a personality test, and the fact that it is called a personality test, I think is that which UPSC expects from us. UPSC expects that we project our personality as we are and to the best of our extent. So I think for me, interview or the personality test was all about how I projected myself and how I was. So I think it was all about genuinity and how I could have a good conversation with the esteemed panel members present on the day of that particular interview. For me, like I said earlier, it was a very good conversation and an exchange of views and opinions which happened on that day of the personality test. With respect to the strategy of personality test, I think we have to, the first aspect I think is working well on your DAF and being very clear about your DAF. So point wise notes with respect to DAF is what I did. Second, with respect to the current affairs, having a very good hold over current affairs is important. But with respect to the personality test, I think the shift here is that we need to have our own opinions which build over time, and they are not merely the things that we use in the mains examination. So with respect to the personality test, I think it is about how your opinions are developed and how well you can convince the esteemed panel members regarding what you believe in. So that I think develops over time. And that can be done with regular reading, with thinking over what you have read and writing it down. So I think this was my strategy for the personality test, especially for the DAF part and the current affairs part. Rest, I think it is all about having a very good command over what you know, and being genuine enough and being open enough to accept there are things that you might not know. So I think that kind of truth when you project and when you speak clearly with the panel members, it comes out as a very good conversation, and I think it is also a very enjoyable experience for the panel members too. So for me, if I were to sum up my personality test strategy, I think it was all about having a good conversation with the panel members and being myself at that particular moment, which actually helped. So this was my strategy with respect to the personality test aspect of the civil services examination. Thank you.